Welcome back to Islamic Finance Unboxed, where we explore the principles, systems, and values behind one of the world's fastest-growing financial movements. Today, we're diving into a concept that lies at the very heart of Islamic finance, riba. What exactly is riba? Why is it so strongly prohibited in Islamic teachings? And what are its historical and ethical roots? Let's unpack the story of interest, from the temples of Babylon to modern-day banking. The modern interpretation of the rules is indispensable due to modern needs, sophisticated financial tools, and the notion of inflation consuming value. Inflation is an untouched issue in terms of religious rules. All relevant professions should discuss and reinterpret the notions in light of modern needs and realities. Let's dive in together. What is riba? The term riba in Arabic literally means increase, excess, or addition. In the context of finance, it refers to any guaranteed interest or profit on a loan or debt, something given over and above the principal amount, just because time has passed. In today's terms, riba is most commonly associated with interest-bearing loans, the cornerstone of many modern financial systems. But in Islamic economic philosophy, money itself is not considered a commodity. It is a medium of exchange, a measure of value, not something that should generate more money simply by existing. Riba is seen not just as a technical flaw in a contract, but as a moral and social problem. Its prohibition is based on fairness, justice, and the prevention of exploitation. The ancient roots of interest. Many people are surprised to learn that the concept of interest has deep historical roots, going back more than 4,000 years. In ancient Babylon, one of the earliest documented civilizations, we find written evidence of interest-bearing loans in clay tablets. These records show that temples functioned as the first banks, and loans were often made in the form of grain or silver. In fact, the first interest payments were not monetary. They were agricultural in nature, often wheat or barley lent by temple officials during planting season, to be repaid after harvest with an extra portion added. This surplus was the earliest form of riba. Temples, especially in Mesopotamia and ancient Israel, acted as community storage centers, holding grain reserves and distributing them to the needy during times of famine. Over time, however, these same religious institutions began to charge extra for storage and lending, transforming charitable systems into profit-making ones. This was the beginning of a moral dilemma. Religious teachings began to react strongly. Riba in Abrahamic religions. Interest or riba was not just discouraged in Islam, it was also prohibited in Judaism and Christianity, especially in their earlier interpretations. The Torah, the holy book of the Jewish faith, forbids charging interest to fellow Israelites. The book of Deuteronomy states clearly, "Do not charge your brother interest, whether on money or food or anything else that may earn interest." Deuteronomy 23 verse 19. Likewise, in early Christianity, the church viewed interest as a sin. For centuries, the Catholic Church banned usury, the practice of charging interest on loans. This ban was grounded in the belief that lending money at interest was unnatural and exploitative, especially to the poor. In fact, in medieval Europe, church-run warehouses provided storage for agricultural goods, and the first practices of interest reappeared when churches began lending these goods with a required surplus. It wasn't until the Renaissance and the rise of capitalism that these religious bans began to weaken, as governments and merchants pushed for financial systems that could support long-term investment and risk. Islamic prohibition of riba. In Islam, the prohibition of riba is crystal clear and absolute. The Quran condemns riba in no uncertain terms. In Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 275, it says, "Those who devour riba will not stand except as one whom Satan has driven to madness. Allah has permitted trade and forbidden riba." And in verse 278, "O you who believe, fear Allah and give up what remains due to you of riba, if you are indeed believers." These verses do more than just ban riba, they emphasize the social injustice it creates. Lending at interest can trap the poor in cycles of debt, where they are burdened not just by their need, but by an ever-growing obligation. Islamic scholars have traditionally classified riba into two categories. Riba al-Nasi'ah, interest charged on loans over time, which is the more common form today. Riba al-Fadl, unjustified increase in exchange of goods, such as unequal bartering of similar items. Islamic finance sees riba as fundamentally unfair because it guarantees a profit to the lender while placing all the risk on the borrower. This goes against the ethical principle of shared risk and reward. However, in modern finance system, this tool is not the same with traditional Riba. The responsible actors, banks, finance institutions making contracts with customers and define the up limit of the interest ratio. The stated financial actors take official working licenses from official authorities, such as banking regulatory institutions. The finance actors do authorize trade activity and they pay tax from their earnings. On the other hand, inflation is other critical point for validation of interest earning because it naturally decrease value of goods and money without any contract and agreement, similar to ancient version interest. Therefore, some religious authorities says that interest rate might be acceptable till the inflation rate. Ethical and social perspective. Beyond religious teachings, the prohibition of riba carries a strong ethical and economic logic. Charging interest can create economic inequality, as it allows money to grow passively for the rich, while the poor pay more just because they don't have. In contrast, Islamic finance promotes profit and loss sharing models such as mudaraba and musharaka, where risk is shared fairly between parties. These models enhance real investment, entrepreneurship, and mutual winning. Islamic finance doesn't reject profit, it simply demands that profit comes from real and substantial economic activity, not from non-tangible goods and exploiting others' vulnerabilities. This approach aligns with growing global concerns about predatory lending, payday loans, and debt traps issues we see even in modern economies today. So, what is riba, and why is it prohibited? Riba is not just an outdated religious rule, it is a concept rooted in justice, fairness, and social responsibility. From Babylonian temples to modern banks, the debate over interest has always been about one thing: who benefits and who bears the burden. Islamic finance offers an alternative, one that seeks balance between ethics and economics. Developed high sophisticated financial tools and their luxury provided to low-income owners make legitimate the new tools despite they contain interest, however, not destructive level and uncontracted version. In modern society, being homeowner, particularly in metropolitans, is utopia due to high prices. Moderate long-term inters make possible to people being homeowner. They pay their credits rather paying rents with almost equal amounts. Religious doesn't have any argument regarding rent payments. Shelter is a humanity needs and indispensable. Once the sophisticated financial systems provide midway solution between being homeowner while paying acceptable credit installments. What should be social hazard of this interest? The rules should be reinterpreted in line with modern needs and realities. The terminology surrounding riba should be revised by the relevant authorities. In this way, acceptable riba could make life easier for humanity in both trade and private life, since it isn't the same riba it was banned by God. Thanks for watching Islamic Finance Unboxed. If you found this episode insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We will broaden our horizon with thinking together. And tell us in the comments what topic would you like us to explore next. Until next time, stay financially conscious.